medicine. We're going to go through about a 15-minute presentation, and then, as Janet said, the intention tonight is for us to hear from as many people as possible, and so that's why we've designed this meeting to be more interactive. There are no voting that is going to happen tonight, and you may not like everything that I say, you may not like everything your neighbor has to say, but that's the point of processes like this, is for us to get as broad feedback as possible. And so I'm gonna go through this, and then I do want to make sure that everybody understands that promptly at 7, we actually do have to start breaking down the room. And so we just need to ask that you be respectful of everybody in the room, and you be respectful of the venue who has graciously offered to host us tonight. And when the meeting is over, we'll have to empty out. So thank you very much for that. So I want to start out by saying that we fully acknowledge that City Brooks Park is an incredibly important community asset. Many of you live next to it. Many of you have lived next to it for many years. City Brooks Park and the connectivity to the University Lakes are an incredibly important part of the broader Baton Rouge community. We also understand that this beloved asset presents a very unique opportunity to talk about an interconnected open space system, something that works for everybody, something that everybody that lives around this space, that wants to interact with this space, people that want to come and park and jog, people that want to bike through this space, it's for everybody. It is a regional park that is truly beloved and is a front door opportunity to truly create and respect the wonderful legacy that history that exists there, as well as a potential future. Some of the things that we've heard throughout this process is that whatever we do at City Brooks Park needs to take into account that it is a beautiful and beloved existing natural landscape. And so the designs that you see, we have paid particular attention to things like the existing trees. We've also heard and seen it through our analysis and the data that so many people use this space to walk, to bike. And yet the infrastructure that exists in this park doesn't support that. And so through the design process, we've been very intentional to think about this. We've also heard loud and clear, celebrating the park's history is important, and that includes the golf course. We want to ensure not recommending the golf course to be removed. The golf course. We are! Please. I am asking for you all to respect your neighbors. As you can see, there are people that are here that are on both sides of the equation. And so I would like to ask all of you to be respectful. And if you cannot be respectful, I would kindly ask that you leave. Okay? Thank you. One of the other things that we have heard is that people want to be able to use this space. Right now, there are very few programmatic elements that exist in a very large percentage of the park's footprint. And so we want to ensure that we're providing elements and activities that support the broadest range of people. So what our team has been focused on over the past several months is a deep analysis and understanding of the existing conditions, how people use it, how it fits into the surrounding fabric. And what you will see tonight are two plans that we believe, and you may not agree with me, and that's okay, but two plans that try and think about how the future of City Park and its integration into City Park Lake can be about an environment that celebrates ecology, that builds a healthier lake ecosystem. An infrastructure that supports the myriad of people that use this space every single day to walk their children, to ride their bike, to jog and exercise. This is just as much a park for them. We are trying to put forth plans that celebrate a diverse programming opportunity that allows people to use this space no matter where they are from within the city and no matter who they are. And lastly, we want to create a place where people feel as though the park is celebrating a broad constituency and a broader history. That is incredibly important. There is, yes, a historic golf course that exists there and that is being kept, but there are also other historic elements that have existed within the park, other uses, both good and bad layers of history that need to be contemplated as we think about this park's future. This is also a generational opportunity. This is obviously a very, very important facility within the Baton Rouge community, and we do not take that lightly. And so I want to stress that everything that we, as the consultants, the BREC staff, and the broader BREC Commission are thinking about is how to ensure that this type of conversation ensures that we hear from a broad set of users and put forth the best possible ideas that we can think of. And so I just want to stress that as we thought about this, it's incredibly important to realize the gravity of the situation, and you can see the passion that already exists in this room. The vision that we are trying to put forth for City Park is something that balances the disagreements that might exist and puts forth an idea that this is not a binary decision that has to exist, but rather a park can be many things to many people. Tonight, we will have the remainder of this presentation, and I'm going to try and explain some of the process that's gone through, but really the intention is for you to be able to engage in this content, to ask my team questions, to ask the BREC team questions. And then we have two design alternatives that are printed off very, very large, so you can see what is actually being proposed and understand firsthand what we're talking about. There is no alternative plan that removes the golf course. There's no other plans that keep the golf course exactly the same. They're hiding behind the walls. Like, this is where we are right now. This is what we have. And we want that feedback. We want the feedback so that we can evolve these and ultimately bring them to the BREC Commission to vote. This is not a night where we're voting, and ultimately, I do not get to make a decision. My team does not get to make a decision. It is the BREC Commission. So, all of the content that you see is essentially a representation of what our team has been working on. There is a section about the site analysis. There is a summation of the community engagement that has been done to date. There are some themes about what are common recommendations across both alternatives. And then the two alternatives are on either side of the room. So after we finish this presentation, I would ask that you go and look at this information. As Janet mentioned, we have that sticky card. That is your opportunity to ensure that every single person in this room's voice is heard by putting that information on that board. And so if you want to be part of that collective engagement, I encourage you to put those dots on the board. If you have questions, you can come talk to me, you can come talk to the BREC staff. From a schedule perspective, we're about halfway through this process, really focused on community conversations and a deep understanding of what is possible. From here, we will be working to develop one preferred concept alternative that will ultimately be brought to the BREC Commission to vote. We have had a fair amount of public engagement through 2 online surveys that received well over 3,000 respondents, and we've had a ton of one-on-one stakeholder conversations over the past couple of months. And so thank you for those that did participate in that. I realize this screen is very small, we did not plan for that, but this same information is on the summary board, so if you want to read every single word, by all means. All of that engagement and today's engagement is informing everything we're talking about. And at the end of the day, as I said, I am working as a consultant for BREC. Ultimately, we answer to the BREC Commission, so we will make recommendations and they will make the decision. As we've gone through this process, we focused on site analysis, as I mentioned. I'm not going to talk about that tonight, but if you do have questions about how our team has arrived at anything, I would strongly encourage you to go back to these boards and dig into that information. This is also all available on the project website, and I'm happy to talk more about the existing conditions if you would like. Both of the alternatives that I'm going to talk through, and both are represented, are situated around 4 overarching guiding principles that our team thinks represent what we've heard most from the broader community. The first of that guiding principle is to ensure that we are celebrating the site for what it is. We've heard a lot about the beloved nature of the kind of bucolic and rolling landscape, the large existing trees, the fact that this is one of the largest contiguous open spaces in the kind of urban core. And we need to make sure that whatever we do doesn't take away from that. We've heard that this needs to be a very connected park system. The data shows, and people have told us loud and clear, that they want to be able to circulate to, through, and around this site. And that doesn't exist today. And so everything we're doing is in pursuit of that. We've heard, we've heard loud and clear that that the community wants to create an inclusive park, something that everyone can use. Everybody around you. Yes, there are existing assets that people. Excuse me.
Stop. Stop. Both of you, stop.
Something.
Stop talking. Stop.
Okay. We have heard from a very large group of folks that want to see more. And so I just want to stress that yes, there are existing assets that people love, but people also want to be able to do things that they're not currently able to do today. And then lastly, we have heard to celebrate the project's history, to understand that yes, there was a golf course, but there were also 2 pools that existed there that don't exist today.
And a gymnasium that used to
And there was a gymnasium that used to exist there today. There were a lot of things that used to exist on site that don't exist there today. And so how we tell the story and how we connect to the community context that exists there is incredibly important.
None of those things were in the way of the golf course.
He is speaking.
I'm trying to get through the presentation, and then I would kindly welcome us to have a discussion offline. And so, as I said, there are 2 alternatives, both of which present a series of common elements, and I just want to stress what those are. The first is that in both schemes, the golf course stays in its current location, but it is modified in a couple of locations, and that detail is on the boards there. I am happy to talk about what that is after this. We've had conversations with the State Office of Historic Preservation, and we've had a third-party golf course architect validate what we are showing. And so it is feasible. It may not be what you want or what certain people want, but it is an option. There are also several other critical things. First is enhanced connectivity, so better sidewalks, better connections to the existing greenways, a better connection to the University Lake circulation system, a recreational center on the west side of the park, that's the Brook side of the park, a focus on humanizing some of the roads that exist there through things like street trees, sidewalks, parallel parking, and enhanced safety measures throughout the park. Additionally, I want to stress that both schemes show essentially the same footprint from a golf course perspective. This is the existing golf footprint. What we were talking about are a series of a couple of moves, mostly on the western side of the park, or western side of the golf course along the eastern edge of Dalrymple, the southern side of the park itself, and then a small portion of the northern side. And again, the details are there. And then both schemes have the exact same proposed routing, which goes from par 32 to par 31, taking a couple hundred yards off of the overall play and adjusting those footprints.
400 yards.
The 2 alternatives, I'm going to go through very, very quickly, and then I would welcome a conversation. So the first one, what we call the Big Loop, is really situated around providing a continuous unified circulation system that it connects so much of the existing assets together. From a circulation perspective, what we're talking about is a unifying pathway system that can be used for art, storytelling, and safely getting around the park, crossing over some of the main streets. What that does is, again, ties together many of those existing assets, like the clubhouse, like Picnic Hill, Brooks Parkside Pool, or Brooks Pool, the Knock Knock Museum, and the waterfront, to ensure that all of these existing assets are better connected. This pathway system can be an opportunity for celebration, for programming, and things like that. From an activity standpoint, as is existing in the park today, most of the active uses are clustered in the northern side of the site, with a couple of new elements that are added in the southern aspect. This northern portion of the site really does try and tie together the east and west sides of Dalrymple to connect the picnic hill to the main sort of Baton Rouge Gallery area and the golf clubhouse and tennis center. And really the intention here is to, as I said, bolster many of the existing assets. The dog park is a completely overloved facility. It needs to be enhanced, it needs to be expanded. There are opportunities to create better play facilities for children, things like that. The picnic hill in this scheme would be transformed through utilizing, again, some of the existing assets that are there and building out a more robust children's play environment that's much more family-friendly to a broader constituency or broader array of people. From an ecological perspective, this scheme really tries to pull the University Lake system into the park by expanding Bayou de Planche area, providing new wetland amenities within the park, cleaning that large stormwater runoff that comes through the site. We see this as an opportunity to potentially remove the road that actually connects east-west, and we've actually heard a number of people that are for that. We've heard a number of people that are against that. And so we have two schemes that have different options for that we'd love to get feedback on. The idea here is to really celebrate the ecological systems, to put people front and center with natural environments, to create a lakefront that truly brings together the notion of a broader landscape system into that edge of the park. This scheme also tries to invite exploration by really building a unified landscape gesture that ties together some of the existing landscape features that are there. In addition, it provides active recreation on the Brooks side of the park, but does so in a way that truly tries to celebrate a landscape system and create a more naturalized environment, so that the connections to the east side of the park, which are, or the west side of the park, which is largely just open turf fields, is started to be restored to a much more healthy and pastoral landscape. This view, sort of looking at the Brooks side of the park, shows a new recreation center and a new outdoor recreation environment for use by the community. The second alternative, which we call the Stitch, is really about really pulling together the east and west side of the park itself. This is really situated around turning Dalrymple into a much stronger part of the park. Instead of a road running through the park, thinking of Dalrymple as part of the park, slowing down traffic, allowing people to park, allowing people to cross the street safely. Excuse me. From a circulation perspective, the main spine that runs north-south through the project really is centered around decoupling the bike and pedestrian infrastructure from the street itself. So instead of people walking directly adjacent to traffic, they're walking on a separated sidewalk the entire way of the park, connecting to the University Lake system. We also have several major north-south or east-west connections that try to establish a stronger sense of connectivity from the Brooks side of the park all the way to the east side. As you start to look at how program is arranged throughout this space, similar to the last scheme, we really are trying to balance giving people things to do with celebrating that landscape system. And so much of the program in this scheme is centered around Dalrymple. And actually what we're talking about here is ensuring that Dalrymple can perform as a safe street that cuts through a park. Thinking about that north-south connectivity with continuous sidewalks, signage and wayfinding, places for people to stop, so that it isn't just a road next to the park, but rather something that is adding to the park itself. Here's some images that start to describe that. One of the key things here that we've explored is right now the bridge that actually crosses the railroad track over Dalrymple is 56 feet wide. And anybody who has walked that stretch knows that it comes very tight. And so the idea is to actually expand that bridge to allow better connectivity underneath it. You can see a review of that itself. From a landscape perspective, this really does try and celebrate on the northern side of the site itself the opportunity to build off of that landscape and create and actually a much more pastoral space on the north side of the park. And so we're actually removing some of the program that exists there today and relocating it into other places so that the northern side of the park becomes much more about celebrating topography, landscape, and existing trees. This view shows a connectivity to that major path that would extend the existing oak canopy walk onto the west side of Dalrymple, connecting all the way across through the Brookside. From an active programming standpoint, as I mentioned, much of it is removed from that northern side and arranged in a way that distributes it across the park with a focus on establishing a unified sort of distribution of activities as opposed to kind of clustering them, so that's a key difference there. One of the things that I want to stress is, as I mentioned, one of the common things between them is enhancements to the Brooks Pool, including a new recreation center on the Brooks side. That's something we've heard loud and clear from stakeholders that they want to really return much of the Brooks side of the pool to an active recreation destination. And then I'm almost done with the slides here. So from a landscape perspective, this really presents an opportunity to create much more expansive open landscape spaces where there are currently some programmed elements, and provides an opportunity to think about the waterfront itself as being a much more active space, mostly focused on the western side, with the eastern side being a much more flexible open field space. The idea there is that the waterfront and the connection from City Brooks Park to the lake itself is something that we have heard from many people. And this is just a view to show what that could potentially look like. And so I want to thank you all for listening to this presentation. As I mentioned, these two plans are where we are right now. I want to stress that there is no voting that is happening tonight. We are really trying to hear from as many people as possible. And so I would strongly encourage you to engage with the content that is around the room, to come and ask myself or any of the BREC staff. Maybe BREC staff, raise your hand. If you have questions or comments, please come and see us and use those dots to vote. And we will take all of that input and really try and build out a preferred concept that takes as many voices into account as possible. And so with that, I thank you, and that's the end of the question. We are not taking, I'm sorry, we are not taking any questions. If you have a question, please come see Janet or myself. Thank you. If you have questions, come please see Janet and myself.